Welcome to Conflict Managed. I'm your host, Mary Brown. Conflict Managed is a weekly podcast about toxic work environments and how to fix them. We're glad you're here. Good morning, Patty, and welcome to Conflict Managed.
Thanks so much, Mary. It's great to be here.
I know we're going to have a very lively conversation, and I'm looking forward to talking about your latest book, your third book. But before we get to all of that, I would like to hear about the first job you ever had as a young person.
Oh my God, are you ready for this? This is actually one of the stories in the book, and it is like wild. So
Let's hear it.
I worked at an amusement park called Action Park in New Jersey, and this is today still known as the most dangerous amusement park in the world.
Oh.
And they made a movie about it called Class Action Park. And people walked around there, they had water slides and they had all kinds of other rides, but they weren't really designed by engineers. They were just like built, and people walked around there bleeding all day. And they had a fleet of ambulances on site. People died there. It was just like, it was the craziest work environment. And I was 14 when I started working there.
Oh my goodness.
And my primary job, I would alternate between taking tickets at the ticket booth and working on a ride called the Alpine Slide, which was basically if you can imagine, like a bobsled track down a ski mountain, but made of cement with these wonky plastic sleds that had wheels. And that was a ride that people actually died on. And that was the one that also ripped your skin off. So back in the day, this was in the late 70s, before we had like safety. People would go to work the next Monday with these lesions on their limbs that were so clearly getting your skin ripped off by the Alpine Slide. And it was like a badge of honor. It was just kooky times. So this was my first job when I was 14. And they would move me around the park doing different things. And one Saturday, there was a bluegrass festival at this park. And they put me in a little booth. They locked me in. It was like the size of an outhouse, this wooden booth with a plexiglass front. And it had air holes drilled in it. And they literally locked me in. Like, I could not get out without somebody coming with a key to let me out. And I didn't really understand why. And in the beginning, it was like, oh, this is okay. This is just like a regular ticket booth, but with a lock on it. And so I got in the booth and I had a cash drawer to manage. And at 14, I wasn't allowed to sell beer, but I was allowed to sell tickets that could be exchanged for beer. So I'm a very like, very, very studious, very diligent, very duty bound kind of chap. And so I'm, selling tickets and I'm making change and everything's going fine. But then two things happened. One, it started to get dark. And two, all the guys started to get drunk. And so as it was getting dark, here's your ticket. Oh, 20, here's your change, 2 tickets and so forth. The hands started coming in, trying to grab the cash out of the drawer and coming in through the air holes. The holes were big enough for the men's hands to fit through. And so I'm making change and I got people grabbing my boobs, grabbing my hands, trying to go for the money, coming from the back, grabbing my legs and my butt. And I'm like, I'm still just like duty bound, like, okay, here's your change, here's your tickets. And it was just crazy. It was just crazy. And then it got dark. No, I didn't get a break. I got one bathroom break, but then they locked me in again. It got dark. And at one point, I'm like, they didn't give me a light, so I'm trying to make change in the pitch black. And I'm still getting grabbed. And then the guys started trying to tip the booth over to get to me. And then somebody from the park finally said, oh, that looks like trouble. And they came and they let me out. And this was not only my first job, but it was my first job, as all women go through, being in the workforce of men and in the world of men and having to figure out how to conduct yourself and how to survive. And so the next day, the general manager called me into his office and he's like, "Do you have anything to say to me?" And I'm like, "No." And he's like, "Are you sure you don't have anything to say to me?" And it was a very weird conversation. I was 14. I had this big scary guy like trying to, I didn't know what this conversation was for. And finally, we got around to him saying, "Your cash drawer was $50 short. What do you have to say about that?"
Hmm.
And I just like from this wellspring of authenticity bubbled up. I just said, "Wow, really? Only $50? That's amazing." And then I said, "It was pitch black. I was in the pitch black for hours guessing at making change. And the guys were sticking their hands in, grabbing my boobs and trying to get the cash drawer and steal it. And then they tried to tip the whole booth over." And he just got very silent. And he said, "Okay, you're fine. Go away." It was never spoken of again. And in those days, my takeaway was not that I was assaulted. It was, "Oh, this is what it's like to be a woman in the world and just suck it up and do a good job." I didn't
Hmm.
even tell my parents about it. Like it was all girls that are now my age have these stories about
Hmm.
their early days in the workforce. And it's just so incredibly kooky. And I learned early on that you just have to be prepared and deal with stuff. And today I think it's a little better. I hope it's at least a little better today, but I know, young women still deal with a lot.
Gosh, I'm so sorry you had that experience. I would not say kooky. I would say horrific. Um, Sometimes it's easier to laugh than cry. That's just an insane story. And your first work experience, right? Setting your expectations as to, oh, this is the lay of the land. Oh, everybody takes this as acceptable and stride. This is what we're doing. Were you ever locked in that booth again?
No, that was a special event. This Bluegrass Festival
Mm,
was a special event. And I think maybe the general manager didn't process that with me anymore, but then he thought maybe that's not a good idea. Maybe we'll put men in the ticket booths from now on. So.
mm. Gosh, that's awful. So where did you go from there?
Well, I went into a corporate career in tech and was treated very much the same way. So,
Hmm.
um, yeah, so I went to college. My mom from a very early age told me, "You're going to go to college, you're going to get a good education, you're going to get a good job, you're going to support yourself. That's your job. That's not anyone else's job. That's what you're going to do." And so I got to college, and my whole childhood leading up to that point, I was an artist and I was very excited about art. And I signed up as I was registered as a fine arts major, but in the orientation, I um, heard my mom's voice in my head, like, "Get a good job, make a good living." And I didn't, I just thought art is not the way to do that. And so I scribbled out fine arts and I penciled in electronic engineering, and I went and stood on the electronic engineering line. And that launched me into engineering roles and roles in tech. And I grew my career in tech and had a variety of engineering roles, management roles, marketing roles, sales roles, and ultimately became a vice president of a $1 billion software business when I was at HP, and later became a Silicon Valley CEO and had some other tech jobs.
Gosh, that idea of wanting to be gainfully employed is wonderful. And our families, our parents want that for us. But I can just imagine the younger you thinking, this is what my passion is, and I want this other good. Somehow we send this message, you can't have them both. You've had this long, illustrious career. Are you happy that you switched, or do you ever think, well, what if I would have gone in the fine arts direction?
I don't have that regret because my life is really I've created a lovely life that I'm
Yes.
very, very grateful for. The thing for me about my engineering degree that I just cherish, and so I can't ever bring myself to regret it, is that it taught me to never be afraid of scary problems.
Mm.
Because I went from being a super student in grammar school and high school to being so completely in over my head in the engineering program, and everybody around me was like so much smarter. And I just thought, what am I doing here? And I needed a lot of help. But what I really learned is when you're faced with an impossible problem, don't panic and just look at it. And there's very often a thread where you can start and then go get help. I had a full scholarship when I went to college, and I was so desperate to not lose my scholarship. Like that would have felt like the end of my life. And so I had to ask for help. And that was another life lesson that I learned in college is, in addition to don't be afraid of scary problems, find a place to start, get help. You can do anything, right? I'm not sure I would have learned that in fine arts. And so I so cherish that because I became a real problem solver. I became someone who was able to deal with negative conflict, and I became somebody who was willing to kind of instigate the positive conflict that's necessary to get decisions made and get teams aligned and get people moving together. And I really enjoyed my journey as a leader and doing those things and like building really strong teams and clarifying strategy, addressing all of the doubts and disagreements and conflicts, and just creating success in whatever business I was running. I really that suited me really, really well. I felt really good about it. And the super student little girl in me, I was just sort of following a progressive line of gold stars, right? I liked getting the gold stars, and then the gold stars turned into money and promotions, and it was like this is really good. And so actually at this point in my life, I'm getting back to the arts, and I feel great about that, and I feel like there's still all the time in the world for me to do that. So I've always said, I really agree with you. This practical advice is handy, but why not explore both? What I would tell people and what I tell people that I work with that I coach is that you really can have everything, but just not at the same time. Right. So let's talk about staging some of these things out and figuring out how to, which ones are compatible in one point in time and what order that you want to do the other ones in. Because I really believe if you're willing to hang on to those passions and those things you want, you can fit it in. But so many people seem to get stuck just saying, I have to have everything that I want aligned right now at this point in my life. And I don't think that actually ever happens.
Yes. Yeah, I mean that's such a great thought. And it just made me think about your desire to stay in school and keep your scholarship, because you said if you were to have lost it, that would have been, this, been so devastating,
Yeah,
right? Monumental. And I think helping people see, well, what is devastating? It can, is it really this? And so, like, when I think I need to have it all, especially a young person, I have to have it all figured out. What I major in is what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life. Most of us know that is not true. People change careers all the time. But there is something that a university education gives you that is as valuable and many times more valuable is the tenacity and the resilience of going through the program, going through the
absolutely.
process. Because you are a lot of times the smartest person or one of those people in the room when you're younger, and then you get thrown into, the cream of the crop just keeps on rising, and how to recalibrate and how to understand yourself and how to, as you said, get help, which is such a life skill. The sooner you can learn that, it's like a shortcut. The better you're going to be because you don't have to do it all alone. You can find that help to help you see the lay of the land, to help you unravel and think about what it is you want to do next.
Yeah, I mean, people are like so like asking for help is like saying they're going to get needles stuck in their eyeballs. Like they just to admit they don't know something and they need help, and they're like, but I'll look weak. I'll lose all of my credibility if I ask for help. And I had to tell you, for me, it was exactly the opposite
Mhm.
because here I am, I don't know how to do something. If I don't get help, I'm not going to do it.
Mhm.
I ask for help. The person that helps me is flattered because I think they're smart. Then they teach me, I do the thing, they observe me doing the thing, and it's not, oh, poor Patty, she's not capable, she needed help. It's more like, look, wow, look at her go.
Right.
She's able to do that. And I've built my whole life on that dynamic. And so I'm always encouraging people. It's hard, it's you've probably experienced this too. It's a hard sales pitch to convince people that asking for help is a good thing, but I keep at it because I talk about secret passageways in my book, and that's like the biggest secret passageway is just be willing to ask for help.
Absolutely. When we think about networking, what a wonderful way to build your network, find somebody who knows something or is doing something you want to do and ask for that help. And now all of a sudden you've got this ally because as you said, they feel flattered. They've invested in you. Now they've
Yeah.
seen what you've done. And then now you get to have access to their networks and on and on. And
Yeah.
then of course we're just constantly hopefully paying it down, paying it up, and it enmeshed in this world where I mean, another way I think to help people, because one thing I do is I'm an ombuds, and so somebody has to come, they come to me, to my office, if they need help. Um, and, when you reach out, you can ask somebody, what do you think about somebody else who asked for help? Do you think they're weaker? And a lot of times
Great.
people say, no, of course not.
Yeah.
Okay, well, then what about me?
Yeah.
Right. And if we can think about it that way, that's a strong position because you know what you know and you know what you don't.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. And I want to add something to this idea about networking and a shout out to all of the introverts out there. People are surprised to learn that I am like a super introvert because I'm very expressive and I've spent a lot of my career on stages and talking and it just I'm not the picture of what you imagine necessarily. But on the Myers-Briggs test, I'm like a 99. Like whatever this I'm
Wow.
like I am like such an introvert. And, I grew up, I was cripplingly shy. I was bullied for years, and the world was just this scary, unfriendly place. And I just always felt awkward. I was a socially awkward introvert. So the idea of networking was just horrific to me. And one of the things that I learned is that when you're an introvert and somebody says, "Oh, go network, just meet people, have a conversation," it's like the most impossible advice that you could give someone. But asking for help, that's the way into networking for an introvert because we need a rich, meaningful conversation as introverts. Small talk makes me want to die. But when you ask someone for help, there's a purpose to the connection. It's flattering. You get the help. There's a built-in reason to follow up. They feel good when you follow up. You feel good when you follow up. There's opportunities to get to ask them, do you know anyone else that maybe I should talk to and get some more information about this? And it that was how I built my network. I've only gotten that into such clear focus quite recently, but asking for help is a great way for an introvert to avoid all the small talk, avoid all of the social discomfort, because there's a real point to it, and you make a real rich connection that way.
I'm so glad you brought that up. It's a wonderful point because when we talk about networking, that all of the reasons why you ought to be networking, a lot of times it's just evocative of, I'm going to this place where I don't know anybody. I'm standing in the corner. It's going to be awful and painful. Why would I want to put myself through that much pain? I might not even meet anybody. I've gone through all this and I might not get any meaningful connections. I'm just going to skip it. It's not worth it.
Great.
But it doesn't, networking has nothing to do with your personality, right? Different avenues are going to fit different sorts of people. And right, absolutely. Networking is not um is not just about me getting for myself, right? Just this mutual beneficial really life enhancing, career enhancing. So I think we need to change what we think about networking. But it is for there are wonderful ways for the introvert to do it. And what you've talked about is just
Yeah.
stellar. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things I talk about in the book is I give some examples of how dreadful I was at networking events early on. But the fact that networking makes people feel selfish or like it's this sort of slimy, self-serving, schmaltzy activity. And what I have done and what I encourage others to do is just when you think of the verb, the action in networking, don't use the word to network. Like, just don't even use that word. Replace that with to be generous.
Mm-hmm.
Just replace the idea of networking with generosity because you grow your network by giving things to others
Mm-hmm.
and figuring out how to help others, to make good introductions, to provide interesting content to them. And asking for help is actually a generous act
Yeah.
because they feel flattered. And
Mm-hmm.
one of my other little secrets about this asking for help in networking is make sure it's really specific, not just, can you help me? I'm looking for a job. Can you help me? It's like, I'm looking for a job in media, in this area, in this kind of place. Do you know anyone in this very specific thing? Because otherwise, when you make an ask, it just feels like this heavy thing. And
Mm-hmm.
the more concrete and specific you can be about what you're asking for, the more delightful it is for the person being asked to be able to say, "Oh yes, I have an idea," and that you don't make them go through all this machinery of figuring out how to try and help you.
Yeah, that can, also I'd want to say that with networking, how important it is, but it's also an opportunity for resilience because just because you ask doesn't mean you're going to get it. All
Mhm.
right. Have you ever asked for help and someone says, oh, I I don't have time or no.
Oh, my goodness. Yes. Yes, 1,000 times yes. Like that's just part of it. One of the themes I write about is resilience, and I have this idea and definition of resilience is simply just go back again tomorrow. Don't get chased away. Like I mentioned, when I started my work in the very male-dominated tech field, I was super unwelcome. I mean, people actively did not want me there. They did not want me in the room. They said no to me all the time. I was once a product manager, and my job was to talk to the customers to decide what we needed to build in the product, and then talk to the engineers to pass on that information. The VP of sales wouldn't talk to me. The engineers wouldn't talk to me. They're like, no, we don't have to share information with you. We don't need to listen to you. Like that was just my life. And so my version of resilience is just keep coming back. Like they're trying to chase you away. The reason they're doing that is because they really don't want you there, and it would be better for them if they didn't have to deal with you. And if you go away, if you give up and go away, you just, they win and you're nowhere, right? So um what I did in that one circumstance when the engineers wouldn't talk to me was I just barged into their meeting. They would not invite me to their meeting. They wouldn't have one-on-one meetings with me. I just barged into the engineering meeting, and they're like, "What are you doing here? You don't belong here. Why did you interrupt our meeting?" And I said, "Because you won't talk to me. And you need to talk to me. I need to talk to you." And they're like, "All right, now what? Why are you here?" And I said, we have a new product release coming up. It's a minor change, and we need to change one of the labels on our user interface because it's confusing our clients." And they're like, "No." And I'm like, "What do you mean no?" And they're like, "No, we're not going to do it." And I'm saying, "But this is super important and it's a very small change. Why not?" And they're like, we're not going to do it. We don't need to listen to you." And I said, "But actually you kind of do because I'm the product manager." And they were like, "We're not listening to you. Go away." Like literally. And so I tried another time, and they said, one of the manager said, "What makes you think you're so much smarter than all of us that we should listen to you?" And I was like, I don't think I'm smarter than all of you. I certainly hope I'm not. Like, I'm counting on you to be brilliant in designing these products because we need to get them out in the market and sell them. But my question to you is what makes you think you're smarter than 50 of our paying customers who I've talked to in the past month? And almost all of them said, this is confusing. You need to change this. And they're like, oh. And then they changed it. And then over time, they invited me to their meetings. I won them over. And in the end, they decided to redesign the user interface from the ground up. And they asked me if I would lead them in that effort.
Hmm.
Right? That was quite an arc
Yeah.
of we won't talk to you at all to will you please help us and guide us in this effort on the user interface. So, yeah, there are lots of no's. There are way more no's in life than there are yeses. And just don't get chased away. Like that's kind of where the title of my book came from, is I just I wouldn't go away. And people were like, she's still here. Why is she still here? Like after all that, she just keeps showing up. Why is she still here? And so one of my favorite quotes is from Anne Lamott that says, courage does not always roar. Sometimes courage is the quiet voice that says, I will try again tomorrow. And to me, that's what resilience is.
I love that. And so the name of your book is Why Is She Still Here? My Ungraceful Journey from the Playground to the Boardroom. I love that. Certainly want to talk about ungraceful. I think that is, I love that you use that word because it talks about like, what is the journey really like? It's
Yeah.
not straight. If you think it's straight, I don't know what happened there. It's not straight, right? And so this idea of resilience, I want to stay on this for just a moment. I wonder if a problem with hearing no at work is that it can be interpreted as there's something deficient about me instead of we're looking at work, right? This
Mhm.
inability to separate there's something wrong with me versus this is a work issue. And if somebody's misbehaving at work, it's not because they see a deficiency in me, it's because they're misbehaving or they don't have all the information. How were you able to not be devastated by this bad treatment? Unprofessional bad treatment.
So this goes back to my childhood when I started school, and I was so enthusiastic. I was such an eager. I started kindergarten when I was 4, and it's like I can't believe I had to wait 4 whole years to start school. Finally, here, and I could not have been more open and enthusiastic. And what I encountered was a bully, and it started when I was 4, and she was just this little, she was the popular mean girl and was this little Machiavelli who connivingly had me in her targets for 7 years. It lasted.
Mm.
Um, and her agenda was, you have to hate Patty. If you want to be okay in this environment, you have to hate Patty, and I have to visibly see you hating Patty. So I would go to school and I would just hear that, like, I hate you, Patty. And, um, ew, you're gross. Get away from me. You're disgusting. You can't be with us. How dare you approach us? That sort of thing. And it was awful. Like
Awful. I'm really
it
sorry.
was absolutely, absolutely awful. But my mom, who is amazing, I would come home from school every day and she would rub my back, and we would have these long, deep conversations about why people are mean.
Mm.
And what she taught me is that it's never about you. It's always about them. Always. And that a bully is someone that's hurting a lot. Like they feel really bad on the inside. You can't see it, but they feel really bad on the inside. And when they're treating you badly, they're trying to make you feel as bad as they do. And it has nothing to do with you. And I got that message so much and so strongly from my mom. And I was such a lucky, one of the things I'm so grateful for is, a lot of kids come home from school and home is the scary place. Like the world is the safe place and home is the scary place. For me, it was the reverse. The world was the scary place and home was just absolutely safe and supportive and nurturing and shame free, and like I won the lottery with my family. So that allowed me to get brutally hurt every day at school, but come home to this wonderful supportive environment where I could learn about human nature and I could recharge. Like I wasn't scared at home too. So every day I could go back again tomorrow. That quiet voice that says go back again tomorrow. And I got to tell you, the bullying and the horrible treatment I faced at work, they had nothing on that little girl. Like
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I just, oh, and the other part of this story is that um, I decided at a very young age, at like 7 probably, that even though I was being bullied, I knew I was smart. I knew I loved school. The super student had already, taken flight. My teachers loved me. I was getting gold stars. And I thought, you know what? My bully can't touch this. I'm gonna try and deflect as much as possible with mom's advice that it's not about me. And I'm gonna be an excellent student and I'm gonna pursue mom's path of getting a good education and getting a good job someday. And I just knew that she couldn't touch that. And so when I got into the workplace, I think for me it was just abundantly clear. We're arguing about the work.
Mm-hmm.
This has nothing to do with me
Mm-hmm.
because I learned that lesson so deeply as a child.
Mm. So as you moved up into management and leadership, given your background in being mistreated, awfully mistreated, um, how did that impact the systems you put in place to make sure that your employees were treated with respect?
Yeah, so I made a decision pretty early on when I was in my 20s and I was interviewing for jobs. Um, Almost every time the man across the desk from me would say, "Who are your enemies?" And I'm like, "What?" Like, what do you mean? Who are my enemies? And it got to be such a regular question. I'm like, what on earth is going on with this? With this, am I supposed to have enemies? Like, and then I finally realized that this was very much part of the male definition of power. That for me to win, not only do you have to lose, but I need to see you lose and I need to see it hurt.
Hmm.
And I thought, wow, isn't that interesting? That sounds an awful lot like bullying. Like
Hmm.
I just this idea of power just never I could never connect myself with it. And a lot of women get told, you're too nice.
Mhm.
Nobody's going to respect you. You're too nice. You need to make people fear you. Like all of this stuff. And I just decided very early on that that's not the path for me. Like I am never going to make someone feel small on purpose. I'm never going to turn into a bully. I just couldn't do it. And so I thought, I'm being told that this is going to limit my career. And you know what? If that's the case, I'm okay with that. Like it's not worth it to me to change into an aggressive bully. And then as I went through my career, I just saw so many leaders that were these aggressive bullies and they were really assholes. And I thought, you know, they're succeeding. Like, it's not hard to find somebody like that because those people, there's plenty of them that have achieved high levels of success. But I sort of made it my mission to break the link between kindness and weakness. The opposite of asshole is not weak person. It's just not.
Mhm.
The opposite can be a strong person that's still a kind person.
Mhm.
And so I built my whole leadership agenda upon um, kindness. And what I call it in the book is accountability plus love, right? You can hold people accountable in very serious ways without being a jerk about it, without putting them down and making them feel small. It's about the work. This work didn't get done. We need to talk about what happens. But you don't ever have to bully the person. And so I created environments where I wanted to create emotional safety, but part of it was self-serving because people who are self-protecting are not productive. Right? People are most productive when they feel safe and motivated and they feel like they're thriving themselves. And what I realized, which seemed sadly unique and still does to some extent, is a lot of leaders like to stay in their uppity role in the hierarchy and just direct people and say, here's the strategy, go forth and do this strategy, which is a very structured, clean conversation.
Mhm.
Where I instead never do that. I always say, here's the strategy. This is how it's formed so far. What do you think? And other leaders are like, well, that'll take too long and that'll get messy and I don't want people to disrespect me. I'm going to hear disagreements and doubts and dissent and conflict. And it's like all of those things exist. Like whether or not you know about them,
Right.
wouldn't you rather know? Because so I would always invite a healthy debate phase. And because and you know this well, right? What that healthy debate phase gives you is all the information about things you need to resolve and take care of before anybody's going to move forward. And so you have the debate, you put a moment in time where a decision's going to be made, then debate stops and you go. And people feel safe when you listen to them. And you don't have to agree with everything they said.
Mhm.
That's the other thing I find leaders struggle with. It's like, well, I'm not going to listen to people because I'm not going to do what they tell me. And then they're going to say I didn't listen anyway. And I'm like, no, 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 no.
Yeah.
The goal is to make them feel listened to, like the
Mhm.
act of you listening and asking thoughtful questions and really understanding where they're coming from. Then when you go off in another direction, you can explain why you did that, and they're still going to feel listened to.
Yeah.
And so that was just really fundamental to the way that I wanted to lead. And as it turned out, it did not negatively impact my career.
Surprise, surprise. Actually, when you treat people well, it makes everything better. Right? You can make anybody comply and obey when you threaten them,
Yeah.
right? And you're threatening their livelihood or their reputation, or you're humiliating them or bullying them. You can get people to do stuff. But loyalty, buy-in, psychological safety, collaboration, true innovation, you're not going to get the best of people when they, if we talk about Machiavelli, right? If once they hate you, now they're plotting against you,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So actually, you get much more out of love. And love is this interesting thing. Like, hate makes everything small. Love, there's no end to it. The more you love, the more there is, right? And it's just this sui generis relationship we can have with other, where it blooms and blooms and blooms, just like a real power. If you have the power and you give some, you get more. When you give your power to others, it has this ability. So when we're not operating out of fear, but out of love, out of kindness, it's amazing what we get. And we can then stand conflict. Conflict is a good for all the reasons you said. If you want to know where maybe unintended consequences might be, if you want to know, if you want people to get buy-in because now they've thought through it with you, then you're going to have to take the conflict because it is there. That's whether or not you're going to know about it, whether or not you're going to encourage people to the table. And we want conflict. We should need to disagree well with each other.
Yep.
Yeah. So this is your third book. What encouraged you to write this book now?
So my first two books were very much from the perspective of I built this successful career. I figured out a lot of things. I'm going to share what I learned. So they're very instructive. They're
Mhm.
very rich, full of I figured out how to do this. Here's how you do that. And I fear that those books gave people the impression that like I had my act together all along. And in this quest to make people feel safe and seen, I thought I got to tell the real story. Like it's time. Like I really want to tell the real story because so much of it was ungraceful. And I've talked about a couple of stories about where I was mistreated. But man, there are plenty of stories where I messed up. Like I messed up. I went through lots of embarrassing things. Um, I had, my fair or more human share of doubts and insecurities. And I want people to know that. Like, I want people to know that that's part of a successful journey. One of the characters in my book is my internal critic. And it's just this voice that's constantly saying, you suck and you're not good enough. And look at them. You don't belong here. You're not like them. Are you crazy? You're too young. You're way too young for that job. You're even too young for the job you have now. What are you thinking? Like this voice just followed me through my whole career. And I really wanted people to understand that feeling scared and feeling insecure is okay. Like imposter syndrome is actually a good thing because if you're human and you're trying to do something bigger, you're going to have imposter syndrome. Everybody does. And it's a sign that you're doing something right, not that you're doing something wrong. And it just breaks my heart that I see so many people that just disqualify themselves because they're afraid of something. And it's like I'm hoping that this book that shows like my most embarrassing moments and my struggles and my awkwardness and my struggle to figure out just how to be and how to show up and all the times I got it wrong and all of the no's I heard and those kinds of things will make people think, oh, if somebody like that who feels insecure and embarrassed and scared can do such big things, maybe I can get on that stage and make that speech. Maybe I can start my own business. Maybe I can write my own book. Like I wanted people to know. And there's a moment in the book where I was given such a gift. And the fact that that gift landed so profoundly with me was another one of these motivations because I had this opportunity to meet with a senior executive, like the biggest executive I'd ever met with. And I was all prepared. I had my outline, I had my 5 points, three ideas, two questions ready to go. I was all, formal, and I walk in and he was just sitting there, like relaxed as could be, not wearing a suit and tie, just like not formal in any way. And I was like so prepared to not waste his time. And he just said to me, "How's your week going?" And I'm like, "Wait, what? You're speaking to me?" Like it just kind of blew my mind. And I gave a short answer and I said, "How's your week going?" And he's like, "Oh man, you wouldn't believe it. It is tough out there. The competition is just, it's dreadful. They are so aggressive. They're killing me. Sometimes I think they're going to take my pants. Like I'm struggling with trying to figure out how we're going to win against these guys. What do you think?" And I'm like, what is happening here? Like this man he's being so informal. He is admitting he doesn't know everything about his work. Not only is he, treating me like a person, he's treating me like a peer. He's asking my opinion. Like what, this was so far afield from all the other big executives I had met that were all acting like big shots. And I thought, and this guy, if anyone that I had ever met in my whole life deserved to act like a big shot, it was him. He was like the biggest big shot of all of them, but he was just acting like a human. And it was such a gift to him to see him not acting like a big shot. And it gave me permission to stop worrying about, do I seem powerful? Do I need to act more powerful? Do I need to be powerful? I worried about, I mean, talk about ungraceful. I worried about that for decades
Mhm.
in my
Mhm.
career. And then I met this man. It's like, oh, I don't need to worry about that anymore. Like, I just need to show up as a normal human.
Mhm.
And that was something that was quite scary to me because when you show up as a normal human, as a young woman in the workforce, nobody takes you seriously. They treat you like a little girl and you get hit on. So I know I did, and a lot of other women I know, you put on this armor of seriousness when you're young. But then as you advance in the workforce and you're an executive, I started getting told, like so many women get told, you're too serious. I can't relate to you the way I relate to your peers. Like you're too serious. And it's like, oh my God, like what do I have to do to get somewhere here? So this man showing me that you don't have to be so formal and act like a big shot kind of set me on that path. But it's like, I don't know how to do that. Like this
Mhm.
gets back to the social anxiety and the shyness. And it's like, I literally have no idea how to do that. How am I going to figure this out? And I thought, you know who knows the answer? Mom. Mom knows the answer. And I was already a pretty big executive by this point. And she's like, "Well, Patty, of course, if you're just all work, if you just show up as all work, you're not giving anybody anything to relate to. Like you need to show them something of yourself." And I'm like, "But I'm afraid they won't take me seriously." And she's like, "Patty, the men they're playing golf and going out for drinks and they call that work. Like tell them something of yourself." And I'm like, "But like what?" She's like, tell them about your art. Tell them about your bike rides, something, anything." And it occurred to me that what was missing and part of this like this ungracefulness and awkwardness was that they wanted me around sort of because I delivered such good results. I did such good work and I delivered such good results, but they didn't really want me there. Like I wasn't somebody that they wanted in the room, that they wanted to hang out with. And after talking with Dwayne, this big executive, and talking with my mom, it finally struck me like, Patty, nobody wants to have a drink with 3 points, 5 ideas, and 2 questions. Like
Mhm.
and so
Yeah.
at that point, I kind of allowed myself to just loosen up a bit and just be a normal human being and to start conversations with anybody with how's your week going and just get some humanity moving back and forth. And as you were talking about love, the positive energy just expands.
Yeah.
Sometimes the executive would be like, "I'm fine. I don't have time for this." And then I'd get back to my 5 points and 3 questions.
Mhm.
But other times it would be like, "Man, I'm having a great day," or "You wouldn't believe what happened to me." And then we would have a real conversation. And then the business went so much smoother and so much better after making that human connection. So that ungraceful idea was very much about partly about me figuring my way to just not be such a mute idiot in social situations and just figuring out how to be. That was not a natural journey for me. I had to learn it.
I appreciate so much of what you've said, and one of it is tied into imposter syndrome and this whole how do I look powerful? How do I get people to take me seriously? How do I do this? How do I do that? And if we can pause and realize that the person with real power, who really has the power, is not usually thinking that because they have the power. Like they know how to move in the world. Nobody's perfect and nobody doesn't have these moments. And so if we took more time to be reflective, who am I? How do I want to show up? As you did through these series of conversations, well,
Yeah.
how much do I want to share? What is it like for someone to be my colleague? What is their experience
Mm,
of me? And moving away from this um, more robot interface with people, information points, right?
yeah.
To this more, as you said, smooth interface of I'm human and we're working together, but it just allows it to flow because now I have a relationship with you. I'm not guessing as much as to what I'm getting with you, and I have these
Right.
points of connection.
Yep.
And so I really appreciate writing this book in this way this ungraceful aspect in the shellac of the Instagram world that we live in, right? Where everybody's putting on, and the picture that you see posted or the video, it's the 10th or the 100th, right? And everything has been,
Yeah.
whatever it has been, touched up.
Yeah.
But if we only looking at touched up lives, or we're taking LinkedIn as what's actually going on, right? Then we're
Right.
only seeing the successes. I got this, I got this. Never, I didn't get this job. I got looked over on this promotion. I did not do this deliverable as I said I was going to. Mea culpa. Yeah, we don't see any of that, and for good reasons, right? We're not supposed to be airing our in general, right? We have to be professional. But then we can have this skewed view of, okay, I want to be where Patty is. How do I get there? Oh, she's just showed up. She's done this work, and that's how you get it. But I've got all these insecurities, and I've had these hardships. So to see real paths, which are zigzaggy, um, to get to where you want to go.
Yeah. No, that's why I wrote the book the way I did it. And it has all the embarrassing stuff in it, including the time I fell off a stage in front of 2,000 people.
Oh
And
no.
that was not the most embarrassing moment in my career. So there's all kinds of stories in there. And I've also been locked in inside other rooms, not just that booth. But the one thing I just want to close the loop quickly on this conversation with Twain, um, is that, there were a lot of times in my career where it was very difficult being in a male dominated environment, and I got a lot of bad treatment of all varieties.
Mhm.
I also want to say that I got a lot of big, I made a lot of progress in my career. I got a lot of big breakthroughs. 100% of those breakthroughs were because I had help, and 100% of the people who helped me were men. There were good men who were mentors in my career. There was never anything asked in return. There was never anything scary or weird or icky about it. They just saw me as someone with potential, and they helped either by being a great example, by coaching me, or by actually opening doors for me and giving me access to getting interviewed for jobs I never would have seen without help. So I just want to make sure that my in this conversation, my story doesn't come across as too one-sided, and I'm very grateful to all of the good men out there who helped me along the way.
That's excellent. It's when we have negative experiences with any sort of class of, um, it's good to be reminded that that's their individual problem,
Yep.
that those individual people's misbehaving and they don't speak for everybody,
Yep.
right? And that there are genuinely, most people show up for work and want to do good work and they want to help one another, but the system in which you find yourself in is very important too, because if you have a particular work environment that has, like we don't gossip here and we're here for each other, then that's what you're going to get. But if you have an environment where there's backstabbing, where there is bullying, it's hard to be in that toxic environment, even if you're a good person, because you're just trying to keep your head above water. And if this is what is normal, everybody is suffering, even the people who are trying to be generous and loving.
Yeah. One of the ways that I set my boundaries, which worked pretty well for me, was I was really like the thing would happen, and then I would pause and maybe go away and think about it overnight, but try not to react in the moment. Um, and then I would ask myself the question, is this dangerous or just annoying? And if I felt like I was physically in danger or somebody was attacking me in a way that they were truly sabotaging my ability to do my job or my reputation, like there were dangerous things. And then man, was there a mountain of annoying. Just, bad, dismissive, demeaning behaviors, minor sexual advances, annoying. Like, and I thought, you know what? I could burn up an awful lot of energy if, there's just not enough energy in my soul to deal with 100% of the things that were annoying. And I need to save that energy for doing good things in the world and for when I encounter one of the things that's actually dangerous. And that's helped me a lot. That if it's dangerous, I have to deal with it. I have to either address it or I have to remove myself from the situation. And, one form of dangerous is an environment that's just so toxic that it's injuring your soul.
Yeah.
Like that is save yourself.
And that's so important, that pause, so that you can really think about what did just happen? What do I want to have happen next? And to really think through. And sometimes we can have somebody else, a sounding board. This is what happened. What do you think? This is my reaction to help right
Yep.
size the reaction. Because sometimes we can make a mountain out of a molehill. And sometimes we want to dismiss behavior that ought not be dismissed because of the fear. But really having that clear about, I love that, is it annoying? Is it dangerous? And then you get to decide what you want to fight. What
Yep.
battle am I going to fight? If I'm going to fight the good fight in every single thing, am not going to get to what my actual goal is, right? Whatever that goal is, because I'm going to be in the weeds. I'm going to be distracted. And what am I actually going to be accomplishing?
Yep.
Yeah. So
And
if
you're
you,
never you're never at your best when you're activated. Like when the
yes.
bad thing happens, my brain just isn't working right. So I think it's so important to just realize, wait, I'm activated. The only move is to pause.
How did you get there? Because that can be hard because we just have these biological reactions, like we're being attacked, and so the fight, flight, free, fawn, whatever, all these
Yeah.
F's associated with it. How did you develop within yourself, or did you get that from these terrible childhood experiences, this ability to pause?
Yeah,
Or
it's a little bit it's a little bit of all of those things. So, when you get hurt, you don't die. Like
Mm.
when you get emotionally hurt, you don't die. You can get up and go back and try again tomorrow. That I got from my childhood experiences. I've written my fair share of the angry email and realized, or then I've written my fair share of the angry email and decided to sleep on it. And I read it the next morning and I'm like, oh my God, I can't send that. Right. So I think probably maybe it was just one angry email that blew up in my face. And then I
Mm.
learned to just type my own name in the to line.
Mm.
And then I could get the satisfaction of hitting send. And then it comes to me, and then I get to look at it again the next morning. And then I had another mentor who I would go to, and like, I just heard that the sales manager in Europe is made a play to take all of my budget and da 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 da. And what am I going to do? And he'd be like, Patty, have you called her? Have you verified that? Have you verified that she's actually doing that? And he's like, if you haven't, then I'm not going to talk to you about this. Verify what's actually happening first. And then if that's true, let's talk about it. And
Mm.
so many times it was just things, the game of telephone
Mhm.
that escalated through the grapevine, and you'd get this news that landed on you that it would make me so angry and scared. And after like two or three times of this boss saying, Patty, have you verified that? I thought, I could ask myself that question before going to him. And, now I'm getting embarrassed that he's always been being the one to talk me down from the ledge here. So it was a number of things, right? You get the ungraceful thing, right? You're ungraceful first, and then you figure it out and you try it a couple more times, and then you get more confident and graceful later. For me, confidence has always been an outcome. I've always had to do it the ungraceful way and the scared way first, and then you practice, and then maybe you get some confidence.
Yeah, I mean, that's how most of us get it. We get it by doing it. And the hard part of being a human person is that a lot of times we learn these lessons because of negative experiences. And sometimes it's us, we have this good reason to send this email and then we regret it, or we believe the hearsay, but the more you are engaged, the more you see, oh, okay, I can do something different. And I know with conflict, a lot of it is I'm responding to what I imagine is going on, what I
Yep.
imagine your motivation is. And many times the other person doesn't even know there's a problem.
Yeah, I
It's
love that.
not on their radar.
I'm responding to what I imagine is going on. That's very well said.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, Patty, I could talk to you all day long, but I have one last question to end with. As you look into the future of work, what do you think needs to happen so that not only will all workers be treated with dignity and respect, but that they'll be encouraged to thrive and flourish?
Well, that's a big That's a big lift. So, it's all getting harder and crazier right now with AI companies just cutting jobs before they figure out what they're going to do with AI. And like, it's just like a little bit feels like the Hunger Games out there sometimes. And
Mm-hmm.
I put that next to my idea of you should create an environment where people feel emotionally safe. Like, right? Um, so I actually just wrote an article about this. And I think what companies need to do is they need to look at their future strategies and their AI strategies and just say the quiet part out loud. We want to use AI so we can get a 40% reduction in our headcount. And other than that, we have no plan, right? Or we want to use AI selectively in these groups for these reasons, and then train those people. Because what I'm hearing is that people are saying, we feel like we're in this competition to see who can be the best at using AI, but nobody's explaining what we should be doing or what any of the outcomes are.
Hmm.
And so I think now more than ever, for me, the job of a leader or the leaders of a company, almost more than anything, is to create clarity
Mm-hmm.
for employees, safety, knowing what you're supposed to be working on and why and how you're going to be measured on it. I think that is so more important than ever right now, and particularly when we're just slinging around this AI like it's nothing,
Mm-hmm.
and just letting employees fend for themselves and be afraid of losing their jobs and not knowing what they're supposed to be doing with it. I would like to see a great deal of clarity from leadership about this is how we are evolving here's our intention of how we want to evolve our company, and this is what it means to employees, and we're going to say all the quiet parts out loud. Because if you know there's going to be a 40% workforce reduction, then you're going to go somewhere else, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you're just wondering all the time, if you go
Yeah.
to work scared every day, it's just bad for everybody. It's bad for the employees, it's bad for the company, it's bad for the customers of the company. So I think if I had a magic wand, I wouldn't block AI with it, but I would create an enormous sense of responsibility among corporate leadership to create clarity for employees and clients.
That's such an important answer. I mean, when we treat people well, that means telling them the truth, telling
Yeah.
them the lay of the land so that they can arrange what it is that they want to do next. And yeah, absolutely. Well, Patty, thank you so much for this wonderful conversation. I
You
appreciate
are
your work.
welcome. This was super fun. I really appreciate your work too.
Absolutely. All right, well, take care. Patty, thank you so much for being on Conflict Managed. I know I see this often, but it's really true. I could have talked to you about so many different issues. I had a variety of things I wrote down that I wanted to talk about. I really enjoyed where our conversation went. So I encourage you to get Patty's new book, which is called Why Is She Still Here? My Ungraceful Journey from the Playground to the Boardroom. Out now and available. Conflict Managed is produced by Third Party Workplace Conflict Restoration Services and hosted by me, Mary Brown. You can find us online at 3pconflictrestoration.com. Come back, we have new episodes every Tuesday. And if you would like and subscribe wherever you are listening or watching this podcast, it's much appreciated. My latest book, which is called Winning the Generation Wars at Work, Making Your Age an Asset, is available on Amazon. Our music is courtesy of Dove Pilot. And remember, conflict is normal and expected. Let's deal with it. Until next time, take care.